global uncertainties and market volatility, SEBI, the market regulator, is steering through a complex financial landscape. Complex because the world order is resetting and no one knows what is going to happen next, how the global market is going to react. To shed more light on the evolving dynamics, we have with us none other than SEBI Chairman Tuhin Kanta Pandey. Chairman, sir, thank you for taking out time for us. I would like to start with, during your first day in office, you clearly set a tone by telling that, the focus area will be transparency, trust, teamwork, and technology. It's been 2 months in office. How are you driving your agenda forward, and what is your, the most significant learning so far in this current scenario?
Well, first of all, I'll take it from what you said. We have a fair amount of global headwinds, largely out of the trade policies and trade barriers that are coming. And that has, again, implications for capital markets. Be that as it may, we will have to deal with the situation, in the best interest of Indian capital market. So the trust and transparency, I say that, of course, all 4 T's, as I say, that basically they're pretty interlinked. But coming to the first issue of trust is a wider issue of how the people view SEBI and also how does SEBI view its ecosystem and other market participants. Mm-hmm. So this mutual dialogue and mutual thing which needs to be appreciated, the feedback and the mechanism to consult. Of course, we do have an established system of consultations. Those consultations need also to be more nuanced, more rigorous, and I think a discovery of really fine-tuning the processes, so to say. And transparency is again issue of how the market gets the information transparently about the issuers, and how the issuers, both in terms of IPOs, in terms of listed things, and also how the SEBI, whatever it does, also is transparently available. Mm-hmm. Same thing is with teamwork. Teamwork is not only an internal teamwork within the SEBI, which includes different divisions, different departments, how to break the silos, how to bring them together, but also to have an external teams, which are so very important. The teams which are there from market intermediaries, market participants, and other players, the committees that we have, the PMAC, the SMAC, the IPAC, and how they are then sort of able to work collaboratively. So that is a broader teamwork issue. And technology, as you know, is a very important part of the piece, a very important piece now in capital markets. Technology with what the regulator has on both SupTech that we deploy and the RegTech, which is the regulatory technologies which regulated entities employ, and also the market intermediaries, the MIIs, the market infrastructure institutions deploy, and the risks that also get posed through the cyber risks and other risks, including, of course, on AI and computing risks.
Since we're talking about global uncertainties, you had your recent US visit. How's the mood among the foreign investors, and what is drawing their attention in terms of Indian equities and the Indian market?
I think I was, in fact, quite delighted to see that there's so much interest that India has currently, and despite the global headwinds, I think India has been able to provide very consistently. If you take a 30 years period since 1990s, Indian markets have provided to FPIs upwards of 8.5% rate of return, X of dividends in dollar terms. And if you take any period, 5 years, 10 years period, I think the returns that Indian markets have offered to these things are consistently much higher than either the emerging markets, other emerging markets, or China, or even developing economies. So that is one which has been very well appreciated. The second part is the opportunities that India offers in terms of the consistent growth rate that India has been able to achieve, one of the highest, fastest growing economies among the large economies. Consistently, the demographic dividend that it has, the talent pool it has, the policy space which is available, the fiscal consolidation, the corporate balance sheets and the fiscal balance sheets are in good shape. So I think the overall they are looking at India as potentially a very important market for deployment. So there is a great deal of enthusiasm.
I'm sure, sir. So, taking cues from this and clearly that India growing role in the, global portfolios as well. So, do we see any ease of rule in terms of foreign portfolio investors? And in fact, what is being worked out when it comes to, allow foreign investor directly into Indian equities?
I think this was when, of course, when I visited, there was also IMF conference and spring meetings. And I attended also the ISCO, which is also the meeting of the regulators. And there is a financial stability expert group, FSEG. And we could share, different things, and also the engagement with FPIs at New York as well as Boston, and also in Washington D.C. Now, this engagement process actually gives a lot of feedback. It gives you, sort of ideas where you can also simplify things, make it easier. A lot has been done. For example, there's an FBI outreach cell in SEBI, which has reached out to over the last few months, to about 2,000 FPIs, looking at their issues, if any. There is a common application form. A lot of improvement has been made there. The registration process, a lot of improvements have been done. And of course, there is a scope for more. And I think this engagement process will be able to, allay many of the concerns that they might have, and some of the recent changes which have happened for ease of doing business. They would be really, this engagement process puts, underlines that, and that there's an improved understanding about the Indian regulations.
So all you mentioned is the compliance side of it. Do we see some regulatory tweaking also in terms of the rule which we have at this point of time? Do we see something in the near term in terms of tweaking and modifying the rule which we have?
I think one is that, we will be constantly, in the engagement. I mean, we'll intensify the engagement. That gives you pinpoints that whatever we might they might have, and we can remove them. And it's in the context of, in general, simplification, rationalization exercise that we have undertaken towards what we call optimum regulation. And I think every department in SEBI is currently has started working on, how we can simplify the regulations. So to achieve more effective regulations, get that impact at the same time, whether we can get more with less onerous regulations, with less micro regulations, can we have the same kind of effective so far as the risk is concerned? And I think that exercise is started.
So talking about the regulation, one regulation around, FNOs, the derivative markets. Everybody is talking about that, whether it's a over-regulation or not. But one thing the experts are saying about that, this could hurt volumes because the way it is designed, it's skewed in favor of large institutional investors. But of course, SEBI is coming from the point of view of retail investors, because you have studies talking about 90% retail investor losing money. How are you seeing this? What is your assessment at this point of time? And do you see that it's an over-regulation when it comes to derivative segment?
In the derivative segments, we had some issues around it when we studied this matter, and we put it out as this report also in public domain, where we said is at least 9 out of 10 small investors were actually losing money. The question is that whether the particular methodology which they were deploying was good enough, whether there was proper education. And we found that there was a particular problem in terms of, index options on the expiry day. I think that is where we find it was truly distortionary. The purpose of F&O market, which is also a very important market, is to hedge risks and also help price discovery. So to that extent, I think the market does that job. The derivative market is really important market. But sometimes I think if the distortions come in form of a particular way that we are looking at it. So therefore, we put out a consultation paper saying that, when we need to change the metrics, the risk metrics, where for options, in terms of risk metrics, we were having apples and oranges issue. We were, summing up, different components like futures and options. They're slightly different. And options, we were not counting the delta. And that delta is now, we intend to bring in so that we know exactly, how the, everyone understands what the risks are. And there are also certain things about the limits that was prescribed and some manner in which it will be done. The number of days where the index options were restricted, weekly expiries were restricted to 2 days. So these measures were really trying to take it from the point of view of holistically, not really trying to, unduly throttle the market, but to make it more this thing and improving the systemic nature of the market. So we have received a large number of 800 odd comments have been received, and we are seized of the situation, and soon we will come out with the clearer regulations around it.
Do we see guidelines soon, maybe in next board meeting?
Yes, these are the things that we can do. You don't require a board meetings for it, approval. This is something which we can handle based on the position paper that was put out and the comments which we received. A considered view will be taken.
Sir, speaking on the regulation, you reputedly said that, there is a need to review the decade-old SEBI regulation. Now, I also assume that other acts like income tax also, gone through that. All that redundant provision will be moved out, and we have new act altogether. Similarly, the same exercise we will see in the SEBI as well. How you're going to do that, one, and is there any timeline in mind to do that?
Yes, this exercise has actually begun. How we are attempting to do is to ask every department in the SEBI to engage with their respective stakeholders. A big advantage is that we have a very active engagement process in SEBI, and I have publicly said also, and I've told the committees, I've told many representatives of associations who have come and met me to give their suggestions. And wherever we can, in a collaborative exercise, we can co-create these regulations more simplified, more contextualized, and I think trying to achieve an objective with as much simplicity as possible.
Any identification how many redundant provisions are there in the existing Act? Any numbers, any calculation there, or still the work in progress?
I think the work has begun, and people have to really identify in consultations. So therefore, it's not exactly a numerical game too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically the type of provisions which are there in the thing, and somewhere it could be a question of making clarity in the language of the regulations, because sometimes if you have any vagueness around it, any ambiguity ambiguity in the language that may create problems. So the better thing is to make it clearer. In some cases, you would say that that's not really required now in the present context. May have been required in a particular context earlier in the past. That can go. So this is the micro detailing which every regulation will undergo, and it will go through a process. I mean, it's not really that this is the line and this is the deadline. Okay. I mean, we can always have a phasing in. Like we can attempt something, and something we can do it in the next board. By the next, and then by the subsequent board, we can also attempt a larger kind of rationalization.
Just for clarity, this will also go through the parliamentary approval process, same like in the other
regulations acts? These are the regulations which SEBI does it. It is within the same law, within the same rules. Since SEBI can issue regulations, so we're talking of regulations and circulars that is within the power of either the SEBI itself or with the SEBI board.
Understood, sir. So on the settlement cycle, SEBI has been pushing for faster settlement cycle, and we are already at T+1. What's your view on having T+0 cycle, and do you see the viability of implementing T+0 at this point of time?
Well, I think T+0 was conceived as an optional one. It remains optional, and I don't think that we should be, we are very sort of, excited about pushing it any further. So T+1 to me is quite a good one.
Sure, sir. So on the IPO momentum we have seen since February, there is one or two mainstream IPO. Do you see that the slowdown is attributed to the global uncertainty, and how you're seeing the IPO market in rest of the year?
Well, I mean, as you know, that last year was a very big year for IPOs. India had the largest number of IPOs anywhere in the world.
Yes.
In fact, there were markets where IPOs are very difficult to come by. In India, we have a very big pipeline of IPOs which is there. Of course, the markets do adjust. Last few months, especially 2-3 months, have been fairly uncertain. Uncertainty is still there in the minds of the people, but last 2-3 months have been especially problematic in terms of where the world is going. So therefore, capital raising has been slightly, I just said, that postponed by many issuers, which I hope that it will resume soon, because as things get clearer, they may still get further things. So we hope that this will the new IPOs will start.
So you think that the companies are waiting to have some clarity on the trade side of it, which government is already negotiating?
Yes, also the trade, the trade and economy are also quite interlinked. So therefore, even if you are, because if they are expanding, if they are doing it and raising resources, and also the volatility in the market is also is always a concern. So I think now things are stabilizing on the capital market front.
True. Sir, on the stock exchange side of it, I would ask that, do you think that more players are required? Stock exchanges are first line regulator, and we have two main players at this point. So do you think that it's important to have more players for, for innovation, to increase competitiveness? What's your view on that, sir?
I think the regulations permit more exchanges also. I mean, nobody is stopping it. There is a certain minimum rules. 5% maximum one can have, 15% institutionally shareholding. It has to be a widely held structure, and that's about it. I mean, but the point
it becomes sensitive.
But the point is that it has to be, again, it's also an economic viability issue, because any new entrant then will have to sort of compete to get it, because there are two exchanges currently, and they are fairly robust to provide the services. So therefore, it really depends upon that. I mean, as a regulation, we do not we allow sort of multiple players.
So we have seen a BSE IPO, and I'm on the NSE IPO status. I just wanted to understand where it is, what challenges is it facing, and what is the regulator view when we could see some green signal from the regulator to NSE IPO?
I think the NSE and SEBI are in consultation on some of the key points on market governance issue, technology, litigation, pending clearing corporation, and some of these points, have been gone back and forth. Hopefully, that should be resolved early.
So, any timeline given on the IPO?
I'm not able to give you exactly the timeline, but I can only say that this will be taken forward.
So moving on the corporate governance part of it, when a Gensol kind of incident happens, it affects the sentiments of investors, particularly in the startup IPO. Perhaps, more than drop in a price after listing, it's more about the trust factor gets shaken after such instances. Do you think it's one of a case where, promoters are at fraud, or you think that there's some steps or measure has to be taken to avoid the reoccurrence of such instances?
Well, I think it's a case of egregious behavior by a few. And I think no matter what kind of regulations you do, no matter what kind of laws you pass, there will be, if there is an egregious greed, and if there is, in my opinion, also inadequate supervision, because we can't be there in every boardroom. You have auditors, you have independent directors, you have people who should ask questions, key questions, and there is quarterly results. There are people who are informing in the exchanges. So as a regulator, we can only do as much. In fact, you would be asking that we ask too much.
So of course,
but still, if there is a certain, like if there is a, false information, if there is a, fraud, or if it is a moving of funds which is not correct, I think in the order, forensic audit also has been ordered. So I think these are the kind of egregious behavior which, nobody likes them, but they do happen, and I think they should be penalized for that, whosoever is responsible.
Similarly, in the SME IPO situation also, we have seen a lot of these tax evasion angle is coming up, it's emerging. So do you think that both exchanges, stock exchanges and merchant bankers should step up, be slightly more vigilant about the documents which they are handling as far as SME IPO is concerned?
Surely, I think there's a lot of responsibility on the merchant bankers on this score, because I think they should do a better work out of about that. On our part, I think that initially we have brought in some changes in the guidelines in terms of profitability. For example, there's a minimum operating profit has been mandated. There is also certain other tightening that has been done, that you could use the funds only for certain purposes, and not for your general corporate purpose, cannot be more than a certain limit. So we've brought in certain restrictions in order for that thing, and this money cannot only be simply for the repayment of loans from the promoters, for example. So, but
it seems that it's prevalent in
But the
this
scheme
case.
was basically to facilitate the IPOs, in the point that helping the small and medium enterprises to raise resources possibly better and reduce their cost of compliance, and so therefore it was given to exchanges to approve, and instead of everything coming to SEBI. But I think that we have to really look at it. We will be watchful of how the things go on, and we hope that all the relevant parties in this will do circumspection while sort of reviewing the documents and putting it through, and the exchanges
all checks
also,
and balances,
and all exchanges also doing their due, because as a first line of regulators,
yes,
in this case they are the ones who actually regulate and give approvals.
yes.
So we expect them to do that because that's what the scheme was meant for.
Yes, true, sir. Absolutely fair point. On the investor protection side, sir, I have two questions. One on the finfluencer role, the way they are coming up with all those stock tips, etc. How you are going to regulate that? Is there any broad framework in mind? When could we see some curbing there? If you could share some thoughts around.
Yes, some of the points that on influencers SEBI has mandated is that unless and until they are registered, the SEBI market intermediaries will not be able to interact with them and all that. So that for really looking at their business model should not thrive while they are not getting doing registered. And secondly, particularly if they are giving any false promise on the returns which they cannot do. So I think efforts of SEBI has resulted in about 70,000 such things being taken down with the help of different social media platforms. But we need to be vigilant, and we need to continuously do that, because they can again spring up and things like that. On the other hand, we are also trying to ease the entry of the registered investment advisors and the RIAs. And recently I also met their association. Some of the work which has been done in case of their own rationalization, I think we need to do more also on ease of doing business for them. There is also for Parva, there is for past performance and accreditation, a new system is being brought out. I think both we have to see that this registered profession where the do's and don'ts are clearer, they grow in size, they are more, they come to advise the people. And at the same time, the advisors who are self-appointed influencers and violating, they are taken down and the action is taken on them.
So finfluencer is one part of it. Of course, the face is, you recognize the face and you fall for it as retail investor. But on the other side, the stock tips, across social media platform, for example, WhatsApp, Telegram. Are you in touch with these social media platforms as well to get some idea, some surveillance there as well on the tips where there is no name, no face? How to sort of curb that, how to reach out to the depth of it, to understand how to...
One of them is also to see the education, because I think we have been constantly putting it out, and we will also further accelerate it with the help of this, or investor education. Or when you are trying to get it, to not to fall prey to these kind of advice, which is especially meant to actually dupe them because what kind of interest one might have on this stock tipped advice. A simple question, if you ask him, why someone is advising me this in an unsolicited way? So there must be some interest which I must try to find out, and therefore I think the investors should go towards, see more of documents. So much is online is available. And I think they should get into a league where if they really want to be serious investors, and that will be my appeal to them. And I will really urge them to be more circumspect and not to fall prey to this, doubling return, tripling return, or stock advice of that kind. And, and if at all they have, they should, approach the registered ones.
Absolutely, sir. So moving on the common KYC system, there has been talk. Any progress there, and what's your view now? Again, it's you think that in the current scenario, we can have common KYC at this juncture? I mean, is it viable? Is it able to, regulator would be able to implement that? Because there has been it's been a pending thing.
Yes, I think the central KYC is an important issue. Now, we do have, as you know, under the SEBI system, we have a common KYC system where if you get registered, it goes to KRAs, and from there it can be free. It can be then downloaded and shareable. You don't have to do it again. So it's a common there. Now the issue is that how seamlessly the central KYC and the KRA system of SEBI can be made interoperable, and that will be our effort, that it can be very simply be made interoperable, so that at one we will have just one KYC, at least so far as PMLA matters are concerned. From their point of view, if we have one KYC across the financial regulator, that will be great. I think that will be our effort to resolve.
So if it's get implemented, any timeline, one, and second, how this is going to benefit investors in a long?
I think the Ministry of Finance is abreast of this matter. RBI, SEBI, we are all working in a committee, and the PMLA rules also needs amendment. This whole thing is a matter of priority for us.
So one question which comes to everyone's mind, it's a bit offbeat, but on cryptocurrency, government has been working on paper. We will see it's coming forth. But from the regulator point of view, what is the SEBI view on the cryptocurrency regulation, sir?
Well, cryptocurrency is a policy issue. So it's for the Ministry of Finance to really decide, because it's not with SEBI. So far as SEBI is concerned, this is not a security yet.
Yes, sir, but the suggestion has been sought from all the regulators, including SEBI. So just getting sense, what is SEBI view on the crypto regulation?
No, crypto means is not a regulated thing at all. I mean, so far. So I mean, that's my thing, and let a policy decision be taken on that.
Sir, one aspect which you also faced when you were with Finance Ministry on the minimum public shareholding. I wanted to understand, given the scenario at this point, you think that SEBI may again have to extend the deadline, which is coming in August. Is there a case to extend the deadline? You think so? Because many of the companies still not met. I'm talking about the CPSCs not met the criteria. Well,
the CPSCs, the government do have the powers in respect of the public sector company to extend the the MPS thing. And I think one of the reasons was that you have had several of the government entities, especially the banks, the public sector banks, which had earlier achieved the MPS, and then they had to be recapitalized because of certain things, and so therefore they could not raise the money from the market, but it had to be recapitalized by the promoter, which is the government. In which case they again fell back,
yes,
because of the recapitalization, and now they have to further dilute. So these are, I think, due to these difficulties, some of them have got, this time, and they may be working towards it. In the meanwhile, several CPSCs have already achieved the MPS, and some of them may not be able to possible also, because if suppose a few companies, if they are really on the verge of closure, then they cannot be actually, do that, and therefore they would have to be delisted, or you have to get out of them, or they may be under closure. So those are the things where, while in number you might see them, but they are not really worth the MPS anymore. So I think broadly the government is moving in the right direction to do as much as they can to make whatever the remaining companies which can be made MPS as an MPS.
Okay, but no so far communication from the government to extend the deadline so far. I mean, it's premature also. We are sitting in April, August is still far. So last question on the point that considering that one of your first act as SEBI chairman to address the conflict of interest issue, I wanted to understand how serious is the concern?
Well, I think there has been a narrative on this issue for some time, and we also looked at it. Our last update was in 2008, And we had also internal problems when SEBI officials are dealing with that. Many a time, there's a lot of questions for them also, that whether there is a conflict of interest here or not. So I think the things have, when from 2008 there have been plenty of time has passed, and in the modern context we must also look at it and make things comfortable. Also the fact that there are no public disclosures still. I mean, the public, even though there are some disclosures within the SEBI, but there are no public disclosures. So that is also a thing, is to what extent the public disclosure should come. So taking into all these considerations, that committee, in my opinion, is quite timely, and based on their advice, then we can move forward.
Maybe because other regulators doesn't have really the conflict part in their, you can say it, code of conduct or anything for that matter, but SEBI seems to be proactively dealing with that.
I would not like to comment on other regulators,
yes, sir.
But you can appreciate that being a very active market regulator, we are in the thick of things on a daily basis. So therefore, I think it's better we address them as quickly as possible, so that we put these narratives to rest.
Well, that's the wrap of this special conversation. Thank you, Chairman Sir, for sharing your insight and observation. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.